It's late winter in the West Virginia hills, and a winter storm has settled over Morgantown. In this kind of weather, anything can happen.
Something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right.
And when a beloved businessman perishes in a mysterious fire,
I can't think of a more cruel way to die. Can you?
only spring can melt the fear that's frozen this sleepy town. It's a picture-perfect snow day in Morgantown, and that means fun for the kiddies.
That's fun!
And dads like Reggie ours. But all snow days must come to an end, and Reggie will soon be back at the local hospital, where he works alongside his best friend, Jimmy Michael.
I first met Jimmy in 1990. Me and Jimmy actually started working at WVU Hospital as externs, and we lived together for about a year.
Jimmy has since moved into a lovely ranch home with second wife, Shelley, a nurse at the same hospital.
Everything seemed to be perfect. They bought a nice, beautiful house, almost had the American dream.
But on this cold Morgantown morning, the dream becomes a nightmare.
A call came over the radio for a house fire.
Jimmy and Shelley Michael's dream home is in flames. Frantic calls go out to the residents. Shelley races home from the hospital, but there's someone missing.
They couldn't find Jimmy. Nobody had heard from him. Nobody had seen him.
Firefighters struggle to control the blaze as Fire Marshal Tennant races to Killarney Drive. He's gotten word that Jimmy may be trapped inside.
We broke into the garage, and sure enough, there was a silver sedan parked in the garage.
The implications are clear, and there's no time to lose.
It wasn't a few minutes later they found the victim on the bed.
Michael has perished in the fire. But for man and beast alike in this frosty college town, this mysterious fire has set off more than just the smoke alarm.
Did someone leave the iron on? Was someone smoking in bed? With all of our safety features and smoke alarms and everything we have, how does something like this happen?
It seems pretty hinky. I mean, if there was a fire, I think I could be able to get out.
So what really happened to Jimmy Michael? Once the smoke clears, Fire Marshal Tennant searches for clues.
The patterns and things that a fire creates all pointed back to the bed being the area of origin.
But what could have caused this horrible accident?
There's very limited amount of ignition sources near this bed.
And clean living Jimmy doesn't smoke.
My gut feeling from the time I walked into the bedroom was that something wasn't right about this.
Speeding along high above this mountain town is the PRT. It's the fastest way to get to class, but it's not quite as quick as the racing rumors about Jimmy Michael's death.
I wonder if he had, like, really bad enemies or something.
What would someone have to do, though, to be in that much trouble where someone's going to come and murder you, burn your house down?
Drugs. If you're involved with drugs, drug dealers don't care.
Drug dealers? Here in Morgantown? Surely not. With many in Morgantown worried about foul play, Detective Christopher Dalton hopes that Jimmy's autopsy will provide some answers.
We were hoping this was just the victim of a fire. We knew that we were going to need some help from professionals and specialists.
One of the most important will be medical examiner Dr. John Carson. And this Emmy has some surprising news.
There was no evidence of soot or any fire damage in the airway. He was dead prior to the onset of the fire.
This finding poses a new and troubling possibility.
This had to be planned out, and this was not a random act.
Yes, cold-blooded murder has come to Morgantown. But the autopsy has given detectives more questions than answers.
We didn't have a murder weapon. We didn't know the cause of death, and that made it difficult for us. We didn't know what to look for.
So tissue samples from Jimmy's body are sent to a laboratory for further toxicological testing.
We had to have patience and wait on that toxicology report to come back.
Until then, it's time for local cops to open up the playbook on this former football coach.
We needed to learn more about the victim, What was his personality? What kind of problems was he having? Did he have financial problems? Did he have marital problems? Did he owe money to someone?
Out on the streets of Morgantown, the questions number like snowflakes, and they're piling up quickly. It's time to break the ice on this investigation.
We knew that we had a lot of work ahead of us.
The snow is still falling, but the secrets behind Jimmy Michael's mysterious death won't stay frozen for long. When winter falls on West Virginia, Sandy Burnett and the girls down at the Knitting Club know how to keep warm.
That's what we are assuming.
But we have to keep an open mind.
Yeah, of course you have to.
These crafty ladies also know how to spin a good yarn, and they've stitched together some doozies about Jimmy Michael's death.
Maybe it was a robbery. Somebody broke into the house, hurt him.
Set fire to the house?
Sure.
Or knocked him out.
What would he be doing in bed?
If there was a blow to the head and the skull was fractured or anything, they'll be able to see that.
That's a possibility.
Something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right.
Keep it up, ladies. You'll crack this case yet. The snow has switched over to rain. The rumors continue to pile up. And Morgantown Detective Dalton beats the streets looking to learn more about Jimmy Michael.
We're looking for a motive. I guess that's the most important thing. Who had something to gain from Jimmy Michael's death?
So far, it seems that most of Morgantown rather preferred having Jimmy around.
Jimmy was a very well-liked person. He was active in the community. He was active in his church.
But not everyone in town is such a fan of this former football coach. Take ex-wife Stephanie, for example.
They went through a rough divorce. There was a lot of bitterness between Stephanie and Jimmy.
Perhaps it has something to do with a certain husband's wandering eye.
Jimmy seemed to always be attracted to smaller, skinny girls.
So it didn't take long for a former cheerleader named Shelley to tumble into his arms.
Jimmy and Shelley actually started having an affair. Stephanie, of course, was scorned.
And with good reason.
Jimmy ran off with the cheerleader, pretty much. He married her 8 months after the divorce.
Everyone knows it's merely a matter of time before a woman's scorn serves up a cold dish called revenge. Did Stephanie seek the cruelest comeuppance of all?
To have the father of your children and your husband stolen by another woman. I can't imagine the anger she must have had at that point.
It looks like someone's got to pull back the sheets on this relationship.
Stephanie agreed to speak with us.
But instead of a bitter ex-wife, Stephanie seems like a woman transformed.
Stephanie had moved on. She remarried. She had a baby.
And yet she never forgot her big teddy bear.
I think Stephanie still loved Jimmy to some degree. Stephanie and Jimmy were getting along really well right before this happened. I don't think Stephanie could have ever even imagined something like this.
And she also has an alibi. Stephanie tells Detective Dalton she was home with her baby that morning. And everyone knows a mother never leaves a newborn.
We were able to corroborate her story. Stephanie was free to go. She was eliminated as a suspect at that time.
The heat may be off Stephanie, but the rumors around town are as rich as Sandy Burnett's famous potato soup.
People were throwing out pretty outlandish theories. Neighbors were talking to neighbors about it. Some people thought that Shelley had done it. Everybody had an opinion.
Well, you know what they say about opinions. And besides, Shelley was at work the morning of the fire.
Shelley was very cooperative. She gave us information. She allowed us into the home.
It seems this grieving widow has nothing to hide. But if you ask Jimmy's closest friends, there's someone else in Jimmy's life who's just begging for a closer look.
Bobby Teets was one of Jimmy's friends. He helped him coach football. They became good friends. Bobby started working for Jimmy. Bobby and his wife were very good friends with Shelley and Jimmy.
But hardworking Bobby dreamed of bigger and better things than merely making deliveries for Jimmy. He wanted to get crafty with Shelley as well.
We learned that Shelley and Bobby, we're going to start an embroidery business together.
It sounds innocent at first, and Jimmy's given his approval. But if you ask Reggie and poker pal Steve, going into business with your boss's wife is one thing. Taking a business trip is a different hand altogether.
I don't know, man. It just seems very odd. Jimmy said that Bobby and Shelley went to Chicago for the weekend to learn about embroidery.
Embroidery? Is that what they're calling it these days?
I know one thing. If my wife left with one of my employees, I would have done something about that.
And even Jimmy's parents have noticed that Bobby hasn't exactly hidden his intentions beneath the blankets.
The night before the funeral, Bobby was hugging Shelley and kissing her on the neck. They acted more like two teenagers in love.
Grief does bring the living together, but how about a little respect for the dead?
I thought, that was weird. What's going on with this? You know.
Shelley and Bobby? Oh my. Be careful. These days, peeping eyes are everywhere.
We had video from the hotel in Chicago. You could see them hugging, holding hands in the lobby. They were acting like high school kids.
Two lovers captured on film forever. Life certainly would be sweeter for Bobby with Shelley's husband Jimmy out of the way. Such immortalized infidelity begs the question, was this just a Windy City fling, or was it foreplay to murder? Whenever Anna Brown and her cousin Joanne need a touch of spring in the dead of winter, nothing's better than a leisurely putter around the greenhouse. And this winter, talk of the hot and heavy romance between Bobby Teets and the widow Shelley Michael has kept these windows nice and steamy.
Bobby works for Jimmy, and he's having an affair with
the boss's wife there.
It sounds to me it's like Russian roulette.
What would Bobby want to do or have to do to be able to have what Jimmy has?
Jimmy's in the way, isn't he?
The seeds of suspicion have been planted. And most of Morgantown has made the connection between Bobby's bad behavior and Jimmy Michael's dead body.
A lot of people wondered if he had anything to do with it. Somebody's nice enough to give you a job, and you're sleeping with his wife. I just can't imagine what he was thinking.
And detectives also want to know just what's been going through the head of this most ungrateful employee.
We contacted Bobby and asked him to come in and speak with us.
And detectives waste no time cutting to the quick. Is Bobby a killer or just a cheater with bad timing?
We confronted Bobby with his affair with Shelley.
Surprisingly, Bobby comes clean about his embroidery buddy.
Bobby admitted to having an affair with Shelley right away.
Well, who wouldn't brag about scoring with this foxy pom-pom girl? But besides stealing the boss's wife, did he also take the boss's life?
Bobby was at work that morning. He had a delivery to make that morning, which we were able to corroborate. So we were able to kind of track Bobby's whereabouts that morning.
When you've got an alibi, perhaps honesty is the best policy after all.
I believe Bobby. And his admitting the affair showed that he was being truthful with us.
Bobby may be out of the picture, but before this case melts in the cold Morgantown rain, the much-anticipated toxicology results come back, and they're stunning.
The final tox report came back with significant levels of rocuronium.
Rocuronium is a powerful paralytic with deadly potential.
Over a period of seconds, you're unable to move your limbs, move your body, move your face, and lose your ability to breathe. It would be an incredibly terrifying event.
A cruel and silent assassin has been revealed. But who administered the lethal dose, and where did it come from? Detective Dalton knows he needs to polish up on his paralytics.
Rocuronium is a very dangerous drug. When it was injected, he would have been conscious of his surroundings. He would have had the feeling of suffocation. He would have still been conscious and alert. It's a terrible way to die.
But who could be capable of such cruelty? As ever, Sandy and Lisa have some ideas.
Rocuronium? Rocuronium. That's the name of the drug he was given.
Or where could one get that?
Hospitals have it. They use it during surgeries.
You know who could have access to it?
You thinking who I'm thinking?
Shelley.
Ah, yes, Shelley Michael, RN. This is one girl who knows her way around a hospital.
We really started to look at Shelley a lot harder.
With a growing pile of evidence and a damning toxicology report, detectives suspect that this good nurse may have gone bad, and a new surveillance video might just prove it. Morgantown is mired in a medical mystery. A deadly drug has taken the life of Jimmy Michael. And the Knitting Club is now wondering if his wife Shelley might be to blame.
It takes a devious mind, you know, to pull this
Or
off.
a very, very unhappy person.
Now,
She's
this is
a witch.
Well, in essence, yes.
That may well be the case. But could this naughty nurse really off her loving husband?
We had the affair with Bobby Teets, and we knew that she had access to all of the drugs in the unit that she worked. And that made her a very good suspect in the case.
And investigators are about to uncover a rich motive for murder.
There was an insurance policy on the house. We knew that Jimmy had a life insurance policy, and combined it was about $1 million.
Ah, money. It may make the rest of the world go round, but here in Morgantown, family comes before finances. Or does it? Jimmy's dad knows his daughter-in-law has much to gain.
Shelley was the sole beneficiary of that policy. She acted like she didn't know anything about the insurance policy, and we knew for a fact that she did.
You might expect a cheerleader to play dumb, but Shelley's no blonde when it comes to money.
Shelley is an intelligent young lady, and in order for Shelley to collect all of the insurance money, Jimmy would have to die, and the house would have to burn.
Did sneaky Shelley pull off the perfect murder? Investigators bring her down to the station for questioning.
At any point, do you leave the hospital?
I didn't leave the hospital.
Better watch what you say, Shelley. There's always someone watching.
The problem with that was we had the surveillance video from the hospital, and we could see her leaving, going to her vehicle and getting into her car and leaving.
It seems getting caught on tape and in the act is becoming a bit of a habit for Shelley Michael.
I mean, the person that they see on the video is not you?
No, I didn't leave the hospital.
Oh, really? That's not what Shelley's helpful neighbors have told the cops.
We had an eyewitness of the morning of the fire that saw Shelley on Killarney Drive.
But as Shelley kindly points out, this little oversight is hardly proof that she killed her husband. And she may have a point, because detectives have one big problem.
Video surveillance showed she went back home, at 8:11. The fire wasn't reported till about 25 after 10.
That raises a vexing question.
Why did it take so long for the fire to be reported?
But it's one that a resourceful fire marshal just might be able to answer.
Several tests were conducted using the full-scale mock-up of the bedroom. Since the bedroom door was shut, there was a limited amount of oxygen available. You simply don't burn through a floor and floor joists in a half-hour, 45-minute period. It took 2 hours to do that. The tests clearly show that it's possible that she set the fire at 8:30.
2 clever investigators plus 1 surveillance video equals a very guilty nurse. That's math even a cheerleader understands.
We had enough to show that she had the means, she had the motive, she had something to gain from the death, from the fire, and, we were now able to prove that.
Poor Shelley had hoped to handspring into riches, but she can't quite stick the landing. Shelley is arrested and charged with the murder of her husband, Jimmy Michael.
There's no doubt in my mind she killed Jimmy. She has no remorse to this day. He was a friend. He was loved by many. I mean, somebody you love like a brother.
As news of Shelley's arrest echoes across this mountainous realm, the good citizens of Morgantown can only guess at what demons drove Shelley Michael to kill.
When I hear the word Shelley Michael, I automatically assume a woman who's kind of going crazy.
I am amazed that people think they can get away with this kind of thing. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, everyone gets caught.
Morgantown has rendered its verdict. But what about the jury?
Yes, that's to your verdict. Yes, sir. We, the jury, find the defendant, Michelle Michael, guilty.
And Shelley is sentenced to life in prison. But a life behind bars comes as cold comfort to Jimmy's best friends like Reggie and Steve.
I can't think of a more cruel way to die. Can you?
No.
But for others, forgiveness just might be possible.
I'm a pastor. I speak in churches on behalf of my son that God expects us to forgive the way he forgives. If we're not willing to forgive, God is not willing to forgive us. I have forgiven her freely, fully, finally.
Spring is just about here, and the football fields are almost free of snow. There may be one less person cheering from the sidelines this year, but his memory will live on in every pass that's caught and every touchdown scored.